Hello once again, watchers of Game of Thrones. My name is Nick Pell, and this is once again coming from my white room. Now, I'm going to be talking about Season 4 of Game of Thrones in its entirety, so if you are not completely caught up on the show, probably don't watch this unless you don't care about major spoilers. I will not be going into anything which is in the books, which hasn't been shown in the show, because the fourth season didn't entirely cover the third book. There are some events that happened towards the end of it, which still haven't happened, and which will probably happen towards the beginning of season 5. So I will not be touching on those, but yeah, just know that. So this is where the spoilers essentially begin. I will pretty much be going through each main character of the show, talking about what happened to them, the character arc during the season, and then just move on from there and intermingle them as necessary. First character, who is the main heroine of the show, is Daenerys Targaryen. We get to see her become the conqueror that she wants to be once again. At the end of the third season, we see her hailed by her people who she has helped to escape slavery, and they call her Misa, which means mother, and that's where that season ends. We see her heading towards Meereen. This is a city which is full of slaves and slavers. She goes there with her dragons. She has to do some fighting. She intermingles with her unsullied force, which she now has. She very quickly takes the city with her, the help of her dragons. And from that point on, for Daenerys, she essentially just rules Meereen. She has to deal with being not just a conqueror, but a leader, and seeing if she can even do this successfully. And she struggles with it a lot of the time. She has to make tough choices and things which originally went against her values, such as choosing to allow the son of one of the masters, who were the slavers, to hang his father and bury him and give him a proper burial. And also, at the end of the show, in the season finale, she has to lock up her dragons because they are getting too unruly. She cannot control them out in the city. They are killing sheep and now children. Someone brought in a charred remain of a 3-year-old girl who was the guy's daughter, and she knew right then that she needed to control her dragon. She needed to make that sacrifice for the good of the people that she is ruling, and that was actually something really neat to see. The season finale of season 4 is called The Children, and that episode really focuses a lot on not just the children that Bran ends up finding, just everybody's children and the people who may think of themselves as the children, or who think of others as their children. Moving from Dany, we go into Jaime Lannister. Jaime has returned to King's Landing in this season, which is a bit earlier than he did in the books, but it still worked out fine. And he continues to kind of reform himself as a human being. He's dealing with the loss of his right hand, his sword hand, and is trying to fight with it, learn how to fight from Bronn, and that is kind of interesting. And then he is, more than anyone else, Tyrion's go-to guy. He is the guy who is always fighting for Tyrion, always believes in Tyrion, and when Joffrey ends up getting killed, which is one of the central events of this show, which happened in the second episode, it was so great, he is there on Tyrion's side. He is trying to rally for him. He's the seemingly only one in the kingdom who doesn't think Tyrion did this, and that's a really cool thing to see. Just the exchange between these two brothers, and just everything that they've gone through. And it's really cool to see some backstory, which I don't think was in the books, which happens when Jaime and Tyrion have some conversations, and I really like to see that. In the finale, Jaime is of some big assistance. I won't quite go into that here, because I'm going to talk about it more with Tyrion's section, but just know he is of some great importance in the finale. But if you've seen the finale, you obviously know that. Theon Greyjoy and Ramsay Bolton. Theon is still Ramsay Bolton's prisoner. Ramsay Bolton is still an evil, evil bastard. And I mean bastard in the most literal sense. There's not really a whole lot that happens with Theon. His sister tries to save Theon. Theon is so frightened and scared of Ramsay at this point that when he has a chance to escape with his sister, he refuses to leave his cell, and that is just where his sister knows that Theon Greyjoy is gone and dead, and the person named Reek, who has replaced him, is now inhabiting his body. And she just leaves him for dead and refuses to accept that he is her brother. Theon also has to help out Ramsay in taking a castle. He has Theon pretend to be Theon Greyjoy in order to gain access to the castle that he is trying to take. And he takes it in the name of his father. Ramsay Bolton now is a Bolton and not Ramsay Snow. So that's really all that happened with Theon. We didn't really get to see any of him in the last 2 episodes, which kind of disappointed me. But, I mean, there's not a whole lot that you can do when he doesn't even get shown up again until book 4 or 5, I think. So there's that. Arya Stark, she is continuing to travel with the Hound. I really like this pairing that happens in the show because we get to see these two who were in the first season very much at odds. They despise each other, and now they basically have to work together. And they do kind of develop this father-daughter relationship, essentially. The Hound is very much just seeing it as just a mission. I have to take this girl to the area to get ransom for her, so essentially she can be taken care of by her aunt. And this does not, obviously, happen too well since Lysa gets thrown down the sky door by Littlefinger. Yeah. I really like the extra scenes that we saw between Arya and the Hound, especially just the Hound. We get to see more character development. We get to see him teach Arya how to survive, essentially. And we get to see that more in the finale when the Hound is weakened by his battle with Brienne and is essentially dying. And he asks Arya to kill him, and she refuses and just walks away to leave him to die in pain and suffering. More with Arya. She is the last person that we see in the finale. We see her sailing off to Braavos, where she'll have a big role, as she did in the books. And she'll go undergo some pretty hefty changes, if I do say so. So I'm excited to see how the show does that compared to how the books did it, and I look forward to seeing more of Arya Stark. Sansa doesn't do a ton in this season as well, as she is whisked away from King's Landing after Joffrey is murdered, and she is whisked away by Littlefinger. He takes her to the Eyrie, where he marries Lisa. He essentially becomes the protector of Sansa, and he does this in the memory of her mother and all blah blah blah. But the fact that at the end, the last scene that we see of Sansa, which I think is in episode 8, I'm not certain, but the last episode that we see her in, she essentially is starting to play the Game of Thrones. She is learning how to survive and manipulate people and take things into her own account and use them for her advantage. Especially when she could have ratted out Littlefinger, she could have gotten herself out of his possession, and she doesn't. She goes along with this story very convincingly, and Littlefinger knows that he's kind of got an equal now in some respect, and it'll be kind of interesting to see how that plays out. Bran also doesn't have a lot to do in this season. He has an extra small story arc in which he almost runs into Jon Snow when Jon is trying to take out the betrayed Night's Watch people, but he avoids that because that would have been a very interesting conversation. But Bran is essentially heading north, farther north, with his 2 companions and Hodor. That's really all that happens. We see some of Bran at the beginning, we see a little bit of him in the middle, and we see him in the finale. And he does eventually reach the tree. He talks with some old creature that I don't recall who it is, the 3-Eyed Raven of some sort, and that's really all we see. We don't really get any further stuff with that, and he's not really touched upon too heavily in the books after that point either. We see little scenes here or there, but I don't really recall what happens, so it's a mystery to me too. And then we have, finally, the 2 people who I think are the most critical to this show right now as it is. We have Tyrion Lannister first off, and then we have Jon Snow after that. Tyrion Lannister is framed for the death of Joffrey. He is accused of regicide, and he is held on trial. The trial of Tyrion Lannister was done great, I thought. I really liked it. We saw just a bunch of opposing sides. We see how the trial is so manipulated and framed to show Tyrion in the fault, and we just see him get so pissed off at this. He's just like, screw it all, combat by trial, do it. This trial is a sham. I'm not dealing with this shit. And so he gets his trial by combat, and Oberyn Tyrell, who is probably one of my favorite characters in this season, after a point, he steps in to help out Tyrion because he gets to face off against the Mountain, who killed and murdered his sister and her children, as he repeatedly said over and over and over in the trial by combat. Unfortunately, Oberyn narrowly is defeated by getting his head smushed in. So Tyrion is sentenced to death. He is locked up. And then we have Jaime who comes in, saves him with the help of Varys. And then Tyrion, not going off with Varys right away, he wanders down to Tywin's chambers where he comes across Shay. This was probably a slightly emotional scene just because we saw earlier in the season him sending Shay away just for her own protection, just so that he could keep her safe. He calls her a whore just to get her out and not caring about Tyrion anymore. And then it comes back to bite him in the ass when he sees her in Tywin's bed, and then he just loses it and he ends up killing her. He strangles her to death with her necklace. As emotional as that was, and Peter Dinklage did a great job in this whole season, in my opinion. It's nothing compared to the satisfaction myself and many other fans got when Tyrion held a crossbow to Tywin Lannister and killed him. Tywin Lannister, as always, tried to manipulate the whole situation, and he failed this time because Tyrion was just like, nope, done, you're done. I really liked it. I thought it was a good way to take out Tywin. I thought they did it really well. It was fairly accurate compared to the book, and I thought it was a cool thing. And lastly, we have Jon Snow. Jon is still in the north. He has returned from his communications and surviving with the wildlings, and he is trying to prepare the Night's Watch for war. He knows that there's going to be an aggression coming. He tries to warn them throughout the whole season, and then it comes in the 9th episode, the Battle of Castle Black. And this is the big episode 9 fight, and it takes up the whole episode, which I thought was really done well, in my opinion. We have Samwell Tarly. He is being the actually brave person for once. He gets Gilly to safety, and then he goes out and tries to do his best protecting the castle, and he survives, so that's a thing. But the whole battle in and of itself was really, really good. I liked it as a whole. I thought the battle was just really well done. Finale for Jon Snow. He goes into Mance Rayder's camp and tries to negotiate. As he's negotiating and about to kill Mance, Stannis Baratheon decides to ride in with his army and slaughter most of the wildlings. He takes Mance captive and talks with Jon for a little bit. Stannis will continue to have a part in the north at this point, and so I'll be curious to see how that is played out in the show compared to the books. A few characters who I didn't really touch on too terribly much, I'll touch on really quick now. Cersei kind of doesn't have a huge role, except for kind of maybe the finale. I don't really remember a whole lot that happened with Cersei, except for she continued to be her pissed off at the world type of format. She tries to blackmail Tywin by telling him that the rumors about her and Jaime are true, that his family legacy is a lie now, and he has no true heirs. And so that kind of happens. And then we have Margaery Tyrell. She was a person who was introduced in the 3rd season, and then she was brought in a little bit for the first half of the 4th season, and then she drops off the map for the remainder of the season. I would have liked to see more of her, because the last we really saw was her sneaking into Tommen's bed and just trying to kind of work her way into his life and his romantic fantasies of sort. I would like to see kind of more of where that was going. We will definitely see more of Margaery in season 5, I guarantee that. So I'm looking forward to that. Also, Stannis Baratheon doesn't have a huge role. I really liked seeing him at the Iron Bank. I thought that that was a cool scene, and we got to actually see what happens at the Iron Bank. So that was neat. Other than that, we don't really see a whole lot from Stannis or anything of huge significance in that respect, from what I can remember. But yeah, he was there. Yeah. And that, I'm sure there's stuff that I am leaving out. I'm sure there's a character or two that I've forgotten to talk about. This is a huge season, huge show. I covered as much as I could. Overall, season 4, it was great. It had a huge amount of big events, big moments, and I thought it was just really, really cool. Leave your thoughts on season 4 down in the comments down below. Please don't leave any major book spoilers down there, because if someone watches this who hasn't read the books, they will be pissed. That's not nice. I won't care because I already know what's happening, but don't ruin it for other people, please. So, did you like season 4? Did you hate season 4? Let me know in the comments down below. Like, favorite, comment, and subscribe if you so choose. I'd appreciate it immensely. Make sure to go buy my short story called The Bridge down in the description down here. There'll be a link to that right there. And as always, my good people, my name is Nick Pell, and once again, keep on watching.